We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Hush now, city kids, gather round for Advertisements. Hush now, city kids. When it came to me after so long, I didn't have no choices in the streets where I was from. When I think about the pain, I didn't have no choices. I took what I had sworn. Hush now, city kids, gather round for Advertisements. Hush now, city kids. But you know, the wouldn't let you have it any other way.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters. It is the Fans Forum on Monday night, and as always, a packed Fans Forum tonight. George is here, Darren, Kevin, Ian, Spenny, Magnus, and Barry. Welcome to you in the chat as well. Welcome back to Peacock Whites of LUFC as well, who's back in the chat. He's had a little bit of a break. Hope you're feeling a bit better now, mate, and welcome back to the chat. Lots of questions already coming in about Paul Mitchell, and just want to know how everyone's feeling about that Paul Mitchell interview that we saw over the weekend. I mean, it's been taken in so many different ways. I've seen some fairly reasonable articles written by some press members. I've seen some over-the-top headlines. I've seen some retrospective stuff. Gives you a flavour of what people are feeling in the chat. Yano says Mitchell reckons our recruitment is not fit for purpose. Despite deferring payment on Hall to 24-25, we ended up with a £68 million hole in our FFP budget. The hole would have been significantly bigger had the regime been successful in recruiting in January. Failed bids around 40 million muted at the time. Our hole would have been 100 million, would not have been covered unless a significant asset, next part, had been sold. How on earth are fans determining that the system is anything but an absolute shit show? Mitchell is right, like Amanda, Mirdad and Eddie, but they have had a mare with the transfer policy. Dave chucks in this one as well. He says, was Mitchell not talking about the lack of players sold? If our recruitment was all okay, why did we have to sell 2 players on the last day to meet PSR? So this story is run and run. It's coming international week, George. We had a bit of a say about it on Friday and on Sunday with the professionals on Sunday. What how are you feeling about all of this now? Because it's taken a few twists and turns. Everyone's had their say. What's your reflective feeling on it now?
Well, I mean, reflective feelings, if anything, worse than it was when I spoke about it on Friday, because you're right. There's various commentaries which are you can read and are reasonable, but there are others. I mean, anybody who's a reader of the MAG, for example, the Independent Supporters magazine, they call themselves. I mean, it just throws Howe and Amanda and Mirdad under the bus. Everything's all right for Mitchell, yet he tells us we're not going to be held to ransom, having spent a month had his pants taken down by Crystal Palace. And yet he says it's not going to happen. It's already happened to him. And it took the chairman in Saudi Arabia to pick up the phone and say, stop, to put an end to it all. Well, if that says that he's doing his job, somebody else isn't. No, it's an exercise in for me in making sure he comes out of it lily white. He keeps saying it, but he's only been in his job 7 weeks. Yeah, really. If he wasn't doing work from the minute he was appointed, he's not the man I think he is. So it's all just part and parcel of being a Newcastle fan. It's so disappointing when you think about where we were. The upshot of the why we had to sell, there is still the story that nobody's denied that in fact one of the problems with Amanda and others was that they'd put £100 million fee on Bruno, and it didn't work. Nobody could buy him. What they hadn't realised is that nobody could buy them. There's only 3 clubs in the world could fork out that much money. So they're left with the proverbial on their face. So when Bruno didn't go, they had to find other ways. And the 2 young ones went instead. So I'm not impressed with that so far, to be perfectly honest. And just want somebody at the top to come out and tell us what direction our club's going in now, because it seems to be depends who you talk to, what day of the week it is, and whether it's raining or not, where we're going. So I'm not impressed at all. And no, somebody's on there about Bruno. Well, nobody's come out and said no, he wasn't. That's for sure. I'm gobsmacked in many ways, and having been someone who's supported the takeover from day one and very wholeheartedly, I now find myself struggling to see what direction we're going in. And clarification would be nice. I mean, it was good that somebody eventually talked to the fans, but not in a way in which I welcomed, because it sounded like shifting blame rather than giving reasons. So, I'm, as I say, I've not moved at all since Friday. If anything, I'm slightly worse because I begin to see a bit behind the scenes that wasn't available before. And I'd rather be talking about the positive things that have been for Newcastle over the weekend with our international players rather than this.
Yeah. Well, we'll come to that. We'll come to that in the second half. And just to let everybody know as well, George is going to do an Ask George. We haven't had one for a while, so he's going to jump on tomorrow night and do 6 till 7. So you've got a question for George tomorrow night. Jump on the show tomorrow and push it across to George. Okay, Darren. Yeah, the Mitchell stuff, politics again, stuff going on off the pitch. The summer of discontent rumbles into September, but yeah, I was quite positive, I guess, over the statement. I tell you what, I would like to see. I'd like to see a press conference with Mitchell and Darren Eales sitting taking the questions rather than Eddie Howe on Friday. I think, because quite obviously what's going to happen on Friday when Eddie has to sit down and talk about the Wolves game is he's going to get bombarded with questions about this. And I almost feel like he should be joined by Eales and Mitchell at the top table just to help him out. You know what I mean? It would be a good. I don't know whether it's allowed with it being a Premier League match and they've got to talk about the game, but maybe they could sit alongside him. Who knows?
I agree with you, but to be fair, I haven't. Did the thing go this weekend? Because I've been away this weekend, so.
But he did an interview last week, mate. So obviously he was talking about the transfer window. He was, in a lot of people's view, he was shifting the blame and saying it wasn't his fault. I mean, who do you blame for the transfer window, Darren?
I believe Eddie Howe's got final say. I don't know if that's true or not, but we don't know. They probably shake their heads because no one knows. But Eddie Howe has got final say. You had Dan Ashworth in, and he wasn't impressive. So, and he wanted to go to a bigger team. So I just think it's going to be longer. You've got to give him time to come in, do his stuff. Yes, 7 weeks. He's been in 7 weeks, but he probably needs more time to settle in a little bit longer, and then he's got to get used to the club plans and see who they want. But I do agree with you. I think he should come out, but not talking to the fans enough. Instead of come to peers and doing statements that need to talk us a lot better on what they are doing, because at the minute it's very disappointing. I've been away this weekend, and I've heard on social media like what's being said, but I've just caught a quick glimpse of it. So, but I've just had a weekend off from football. To be fair, I've had a good weekend. So I'm just like,
oh, hey, Darren, where have you been? Come on, you're dying to tell us what have you been doing.
I've just been all last minute. I went to say all last
minute.
No, I had a weekend, mate. So I had a good weekend, mate. So it's kind of I heard any football stories. To be fair, it's good. It's good not to listen to any football stories. I'm being interested in England. I know they won, but the weekend off for football, so I'm quite content. To be fair, like I'm back to it now. Cause I'm going to Wolves on Saturday, so Wallace is good. So she's looking forward to it. So she's the Jodie boys and that. She's gonna hear some songs, so that's gonna be good for her.
Good stuff. All right, well, we'll move on from Darren's love life to Kev. Sending thoughts to you, Kev. I know you've had a tough weekend, mate. A tough weekend at home, but the Mitchell story. What was your take on that?
Well, flip side to Darren, I've been working my you-know-what off and having 11 games over the weekend, so I haven't really read anything about it, which is probably a good thing, because I'll probably be in the same boat as George in terms of frustration, anger, angst, all of those. But for me, you know, I see from different perspectives and work in the coaching world and the football world that this happens all the time. But basically, for me, you should have trusted those who were in place already with the recruitment team, i.e. Steve Nixon, those who were already there, and trusted them moving forward until, I wrote down and advise rather than just stamp your authority immediately. Trust those players who we had on the list, whatever, then advise rather than saying, this is the only player we're going for, this is only what's happening, this is whatever you were saying behind closed doors. But again, he has to come in and sort of announce his presence from a methodology standpoint, and he has to, and that's his role, that's his job. But he can't do it immediately. Again, we'll talk about trust this process. Well, you have to trust him, but I think he's done it in a too short of a window, no pun intended, to get his point across what he wants. Should have let this summer transfer window play out. Let the current recruitment staff get the players who they were looking at and bid for, and see if we could get them through the door. Then basically move forward from this point on in September into the January window. Then start identifying players that he would look at in terms of. I think I've seen where he wants to look at lower value, like the Brighton model. I think I've seen little blurbs and stuff like that. I think that's the remit that he wants to go down. But again, you can't do it right now in you can't do it in 7 weeks. You have to do it over a longer period of time. And I think he's just basically upset the apple cart within the structure within the club already. And I don't think he needed to do that. I just think he needed to come in, analyze, assess, see what's going on. Bring Bunce in, fair enough, as a high-performance director, good appointment. But, again, they have to take a step back and sort of see what are the problems here. What's going on at the higher level? What's going on with the management team? What's going on within the playing squad? Where do we need to improve? You can't. I couldn't even do that in 6-7 weeks. We can argue all day about we need this player, we need that player, but Steve Nixon and those around him, and I know that he was tasked with this summer transfer window. But then we'll get the new sporting director coming in. That's completely changed it. So just let Steve Nixon do his job. They already had these players identified. Go out and bid. Go out and try and get them in through the door. Yes, it might not be a Paul Mitchell ideal player, but it's what probably Eddie Howe wanted, and what would take us to the next level. Then Paul Mitchell can then implement his methodologies further down the line, not right now. But I think he's just come in and put his big size 10 right in the cat amongst the pigeons, if you want to call it that, and really upset it, which is disappointing because he come with a very good pedigree. And I was excited for the appointment, but again, you should have, the evaluation side of it, I don't think he's done that very well.
Do you think that the headline that's been bandied around over the weekend that Mitchell could leave, do you think it's got that bad so quickly? I mean, lots of people, Mark Todd there, just supporters in the chat saying, brilliant by Mitchell, coming out, giving us answers. Supporters asked for clarity, we were given it. Ashworth caused all this, says Paul, and Stephen Kennedy says, Mitchell has marked everyone's card that in the summer things have changed and we are now going to be running a different way. It's not Mitchell's sole decision. It's been agreed in the boardroom. Right. Yeah.
Again, I agree with all of that. Yeah. You just don't come barreling in and start again upsetting the apple cart. Yes, you're director of football. That's your job. Understand? But in terms of the role that he's in, he's got to look after everybody within that. In terms of players, women's team, youth, academy. It should be taking him at least 6-7 months to really fully evaluate what's going on. Then he can start putting his fingerprints. Then you'll see his fingerprints on it. So next summer, then you can see that it'll be his type of window. Not now. I have to evaluate. I have to evaluate millions of players. I can't stamp my ideas, methodologies, whatever you want to call them, the philosophies on the game in 7 weeks. It takes months. It doesn't happen overnight. And I think again, he could walk, he could go. I mean, if there's that big of an unrest and there's that much of animosity and backstabbing going on behind the scenes, regardless who's there, then that's a problem because it filters down into the first team playing squad and into the women's team and into the youth academy. And that's the most important thing.
Good start for the women yesterday. 1-1 draw. Well done to them. Barry, Mitchell. I mean, we wanted the club to communicate. The one thing the club do is communicate. They all have taken that turn this year. I mean, lots of people saying where his heels and all of this. Why hasn't he said anything? I've heard people, and seen polls where people have said who's to blame, and we did one last week. It's it is that summer of discontent that continues to dominate the headlines purely because there's no football, though. Barry, I would have said.
It's a weird one. I went into work this morning still pretty much like George. My opinions are probably quite close to what he said. And there's a lad at our workplace who works for Newcastle United Foundation. And I said to him, I say your name wasn't in the press at the weekend, and he went, "What you on about?" I says, "Well, basically because Mitchell's blamed every sod else at the club for his failures in the transfer window. The only person who's not taking responsibility is him. I think the guy's made himself look a complete prat. He's blamed Nixon. Nixon's then bitten back and said that he put names forward that they weren't interested in. They just basically told him to shut up and sit there and not say anything. He's had a dig at Eddie Howe and obviously various comments flying backwards and forwards. The stuff that Mitchell's come out with could have been said, but it didn't need to be said in front of the fans, Steve. It's like there was no need for it. If he's got problems behind the scenes, you work at a professional football club, you should sort it out behind the scenes. Don't try and make yourself look good by having a go in front of the fans and basically picking at the majority of the backroom staff and having a dig. He's done now for me. I mean, everybody says he's only been there 7 weeks. I've only been in my new job 8-9 weeks, and I've done a hell of a lot in the 9 weeks. This guy has had plenty of opportunities to make a difference, to get involved. He was still there when they were prattling about with the guy from Crystal Palace making us look a complete bunch of knackers. He was still heavily involved in that. He should have had anybody in that position with any decency would have walked away. God knows how long before. It shouldn't have taken the chairman to come and say, "Sorry, lads, we're not doing this with Crystal Palace. We're not getting involved. They're making us a laughing stock." They're supposed to be professionals. It's just, and I don't believe for a minute is this comment that Eddie Howe said, "I want this guy from Crystal Palace," or nobody. I mean, where on earth has that come from? Eddie's always had this plan where supposedly, whether it's true or not, he offers them 3 or 4 options for the positions that he wants, and he expects the scouting team to go out and then the club to get involved in buying the players. And yet Mitchell's turned around and said he was only ever after one player, and he spat his dummy out because he didn't get him. What sort of club are we running here? That makes me, and I know a lot of it could be the press. The press could be winding us up and making more comments and out else. But a lot of the stuff that Mitchell actually came out with and said sort of rang true with what some of the press has been saying. I love Howe to bits. I think he's the best thing that's happened to us in donkey's years. I trust him to bring in the players that he wants. And his comments about he's now more than one step away from bringing in transfers worries me to death. Because I'm not convinced that other people like Darren Eales, like Mitchell, know what the best thing is for the club and what's the best thing for the team. I trust Eddie to do that. It's his team. He looks at the players he wants to play his way, and I'm not so sure I trust the other guys to do it. And I think Eddie's getting his face pushed out.
Yeah, I mean, Eddie has distanced himself, Magnus, in his press conferences from the transfer dealings. He's, he said that, things have changed. I think really Mitchell's come out and backed Eddie up in what he said as well. What's your views on this Mitchell situation that's developed over the weekend?
Yeah, well, I did look at the interview, and this is a typical interview that stirs the pot, given an international break. I agree with you. I think he is backing him, and we are seeing maybe, we've all been feeling there's something going on behind the scenes, and the fact of the matter that Amanda and Mary that left, it seems to have left a bad taste in our mouths, and many people's mouths. I'm still going to say I'm supporting Paul Mitchell. He hasn't had an awful long time to work, and boy, oh boy, it doesn't sound like Eddie Howe to be saying like it's this player or no player at all. Remember the blueprint that was set up when he was hired for the job? He had a blueprint and he had players, more than one lined up to save the situation in January. This doesn't sound like his way of working at all. So, many changes have happened, and hopefully they are for the better. But Paul Mitchell, I stand by it. I still think we need to give him 1 year of work to find the right players. This is way too fast to be jumping to conclusions, and I think that's what this interview did. And it would be nice if the club sort of came out without being forced to come out, because last time Darren Eales spoke, it was because we were screaming for it. Somebody needed to say something after Amanda and Mary that left. And the same again, we were screaming for some answers, and that's when they decided to throw the ball. I'm feeling the conversation needs to happen way before we get so wound up.
Spenny, what's your thoughts? Been an interesting weekend.
Well, I read the articles, and I was confused and insulted, to be honest. Insulted for the people who's done some work since the takeover, saying that our scouting network was not up to scratch. If you look at every sign that Eddie Howe's made since the takeover, I don't think there's one bad player we've signed. Maybe yes, we have paid over the odds, but that goes with the tax we have to pay when you're a big club. I can't imagine why a person gets employed by a company and only has and sits there for 7 weeks just observing things. I'm sure if you were getting paid maybe 80, whatever, 100 grand a year of a big company and to do a job and try to fix stuff, I don't think they'll be paying for someone to observe. I thought it was insulting, very insulting to Eddie Howe as well. The way he was going on in every press conference before this came out, Eddie Howe was saying, I'm not in new negotiations. I don't know much about it. And he's just basically told Eddie Howe was lying at the press conference by saying that he was talking to him an hour every day about what players were going to get. But they weren't after any players. They went for a player they couldn't get because Crystal Palace had no intentions of selling that player to us. So we wasted half the window over one player. We could have had at least we could have had 3 players in. for the amount of money we could have spent on one player, and it would have been good enough to be in our team and upgraded our team. Why in the last year of the window we went frenzy and went for a £50 million bid for someone for Nottingham Forest belongs me? Why go in the last year of the window and bid for that player when you've known all this summer you needed a right winger and a centre back? Even if 2 weeks before, even a week before the window was closing, the chairman came out and told him to stop bidding for him, which I got told. The bid was left on the table and that was it. You had all week to put bids in for players and they waited for the last year to bid on players. That's an absolute joke. There's a problem at Newcastle, and it was like that in the 80s. There's a problem in that boardroom, and it's all about egos, not about football. I support Newcastle for football, not egos. You all got big egos. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Spenny getting a lot of support in the chat, Ian. What's your view on it? You're nodding away there. You're agreeing with him.
Yeah, I'm with Spenny on this one, mate. I do see it from I think it's a weird one. What Mitchell did was, I think, was misguided, but he did it with the right intentions, if that makes sense. I don't actually think he came out to sort of castigate everyone and tell everyone how shite they were, and and chuck everyone under a bus. I think he came out to say, like, I've come in late on in the process. Yes, we've made a bit of a cock up here. Things are going to change. It's going to get better. But what he actually did was not that, in my opinion. But like, you can read into it. You can look. I've watched what everyone said about it, and I've read the stuff, and I've watched other channels that I'm not mentioning, but people who were in there with him. And there's a lot of people saying that he wasn't really having a go at Eddie as such, the people who just having a go at the system. Now, the system has done us really well. When you, like Spenny said, when you look at the players we've signed, we've not made many mistakes. There's some quality players at very, very, very low prices now with what they're worth now. Yeah, we gambled on Isak, I suppose, but I don't think signings wise we've made many mistakes. But there are places that we can improve on obviously, which is, that's why he's here. That's his job. We had Cashworth for a short amount of time, but he never put anything into place, did he? So I think that he came out with the right intentions. I don't know whether he was told he had to come out and say something or not. It seems a bit reactive to me that the hierarchy were over from Piff, and then suddenly he comes out. So it wasn't, to me, it wasn't very well thought out what he said. I don't think he meant to chuck people under the bus or slag people off. But it depended on which way you're looking at it. It certainly did look like he was taking the mickey a little bit out of some people. I think that what we've got to do now is just, there's nothing we can do about what's happened. What's happened. Like everybody here will agree. You put it to one side, get through to Christmas, see what happens then, see what position we're in, see who we can sign. If we need to sign people, which I'm sure we will do by then, and we go again. But now he's put himself in a position where it is, for me, all or nothing. He's not left himself any room for cock-ups. Let's put it that way. Because he's washed his hands of this transfer window. He's come out and said how poor everything has been set up in the background, and now it's on him to set it up properly because that's his job. So I hope he succeeds, and I hope everything goes really well, and I'm sure it will. But we'll have to wait and see, won't we?
I'll just go back what Danny Dyer said about David Cameron. Where's Darren Haynes at? Is he sitting at home with his trotters up doing ball?
That's the one thing I'd agree with you on. Fairweather Freddie he's literally, people are saying is Mitchell going to get sacked? I could see Eels out before Mitchell. I'll tell you that right now, because for me he's done the square root of F all, So he needs to be very careful, because he's he he's meant to be the figurehead, the new figurehead. We haven't got a figurehead anymore. Amanda's left, and now it's it's all back on Eddie's shoulders for me at the moment.
It is. Okay, we are halfway through the show. Time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at skipsandbins.com. Contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Telephone 01768 210 102 or email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Thanks to our NUFC Matters fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. Travel and Tourism Award winners 2024. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. All excursions included, 3-star plus quality hotels, no interchanges, a 2-crew driver and courier. It's a local family company, and you can find them at www.unitedgrouptravel.com or telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And if you want to help support the channel, hit the subscribe button. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up under the video. That's the like button. It does help us grow. And click the share button. Help share to your social media. If you want to join the channel for as little as $1.99 a month, then hit the join button under this video today. We also help the food bank on this channel. Visit nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. It takes you to the match day bucket where you can donate some money virtually. Some events for your diary in aid of Dementia Matters. The Long Sands will be reforming and be supported by Lilac Lane and the Chris Norris Band at the Cluny in Newcastle on Saturday, January the 4th, 2025. Tickets are £15 pre-sale from newcastlelegends.com. An evening with Peter Beardsley takes place at the Tyneside Irish Centre on the 10th of January 2025. Tickets available from newcastlelegends.com or from Woucher. And an evening with the Entertainers takes place on the 24th of January 2025. Telephone the box office 0844 249 1000 or visit the website tynetheatreandoperahouse.uk. And the Magpie Lounge at the Gateshead Leisure Centre is now open. 7 talk-ins for £99. Joe Allen will be hosting talk-ins with Lee Clark, John Anderson, Steve Howie, Darren Peacock, Supermac, Steve Watson, John Beresford, all between the dates of January and July. £99 for 7 talk-ins, newcastlelegends.com. And don't forget, you can subscribe to our NUFC Matters fanzine, £20 for 4 issues with all proceeds going to Dementia Matters. If you live overseas, it is £50 for 4 issues. To order now, go to newcastlelegends.com. And we're up to 84 subscribers for the fanzine. Thanks everybody who's done that. newcastlelegends.com to subscribe to the fanzine. Thank you very much for doing that. Michael West says, question for Daz, have you decided the wedding venue, Darren?
No, not yet.
And Dave said, fun fact, I had a photo with Mick Quinn and noticed Mr. Negative Darren himself in the background. So Darren as well, photobombing people's photographs.
Must have been a wide angle.
Oh.
Interesting comments coming in all the time, though. Darren, he says, hi, Steve, hope you're well. Question for the panel. Do you think the PIF are still fully committed to the club? So what we'll do is we'll start on the bottom row with this one first and work our way back to George. So, Spenny, you can go first on this one. Do you think PIF are still fully committed to Newcastle United, Spenny?
Of course they are. They wouldn't have put nearly £750,000 in Newcastle or even over if they weren't fully committed. They wouldn't be bringing a full team of PIF employees with the chairman with them for the last game.
Do you want to hear more from them, Spenny?
I do. No, I don't know. I just want them the right people at the top. Football people who know what Newcastle's about. Not people from British who's been in America and Atlanta and left before it was all done. And taking as though he's done it all and he never did it. There was other people in Atlanta that did it. For me, we need more football people in that club. And I'll go back to the PSR thing scenario, why supposedly that's why Amanda Lamb left. It wasn't even their problem. It's the head of the finances' problem, the one who's doing the finances. They don't do the finances. They'll have a finance team doing that. How can you spend £259 million on players and have a 70 million loss in PSR? They need people in that club who can connect with fans like Amanda and Maida did. That's what I've got to say about it.
Okay. Yeah, Magnus, just widening the question a little bit. Do you want to hear more from PIF? Would you like to see them be a bit more hands-on? I think I've described the owners a bit like an absent landlord.
Yeah, I would like to hear from them a little bit more. I've seen Yasser Al-Rumayyan speak and answer quite heavy questions that I think need answering once in a while. With regards to the nation, okay, PIF is run by a nation, although that doesn't directly make them owned by our club owned by a nation. I think there are uncomfortable questions that Eddie Howe doesn't need to answer, and I know that we can't mix the two things together as in like a press conference. But there's nothing saying that we can't have our own press conference once in a while. It can be directed directly to our fans. And if there's an issue within the club, if it's falling down in front of us like a house of cards, we need to hear a little bit more. You know, there's definitely some power struggle going on there, and it shines through. You know, I don't know if we can all see it, but Eddie Howe is unsettled, you know. And, you know, with all these rules and regulations, it wouldn't surprise me if they are starting to reconsider or thinking maybe this wasn't such a great investment to go to England and all they do is throw rules at us. However, if Phil Neville has started speaking about it, that means that Man United, the rules have started to bite them as well. So there is hope in all of this, and I'm trying not to be too negative here. I really hope they haven't lost interest. I want this adventure to be just starting, and I believe it still is.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I do believe that as well. And lots of people making the valid point that not how many club owners do speak, you know, apart from the odd one, Jim Ratcliffe, of course, Parish, they come out, but we never hear anything from Sheikh Mansour at Man City. So lots of valid points in the chat.
Liverpool owner does like, doesn't he? Liverpool owner speaks a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, nice to hear from the Prince himself once in a while.
Be interesting to see what other people think. Barry, what's your views? Would you like to hear a bit more with regards to, you know, Newcastle's PIF owners?
I think.
Do you think they've lost interest?
No. I totally agree with Spenny. I think they're there for the long term. I don't think they're the sort of people who come in and just give it a couple of years and walk away. I think they've invested a huge amount of money. They're basically they brought in people who are meant to be top of their field. I think they'll be there till we're successful for as long as that interest is there. I think they'll just look to improve us all the time. For me, it doesn't have to be the top Saudi guy who speaks for the club. I just want one person to come out consistently talking on the club's behalf, not slagging each other off or slagging other people at the club off, which is what it feels like Mitchell. Not acting like an arse, which is what Eels did at the open day for the Stack, because that just makes him look like a prat. I just want somebody to come out regularly and stand up for the club and speak out for the club other than Eddie Howe, because at the minute, up until this happened, Eddie Howe got all the shit. Everything was fired at him. All the questions regardless what they were about, were fired at Eddie Howe, and I don't think that's fair. I think he's not in a position to talk about a lot of the stuff to do with the club. I think we just need to have one person, which obviously for me would have been Amanda, because she was superb at liaising with the fans, liaising with the press. She had that image. We need to find somebody in the club who'll speak on the club's behalf and just have that one person. Just stop having little snippets from different people. I would love to see the top guy from Saudi come out and say what he thinks and what he wants the club to be in the future. But I totally agree with what the guys have said. You don't necessarily get that from somebody in his position. You shouldn't need to do that. It should be a position that the club have. But after watching Mitchell, I don't know if I would trust him to come out with an opinion that speaks for the club, because he seems to have an agenda about him. And quite frankly, I wouldn't trust Darren Eales either. So, but just that one person for me, Steve, just somebody who's going to speak regularly on the club's behalf.
Okay, Darren, do you think PIF have lost a bit of interest? Like the consensus seems to be they haven't. And would you like to hear a bit more from them?
I don't think they lost interest, but I kind of agree with Spenny and a little bit of Barry. We need to be talking to the club a lot better, the fans a lot better, and have one person to, and not every week, is at least better organisation between them. Because they need to talk to the fans a lot more. They've opened the prices on the season tickets inside the ground, so they're taking the money again. But why don't they talk to us? Let us know what's going on, what your ambitions are. The one success, and they always said that, you know, Mana said it'll be a long road, they'll hit bumps in the road. This is a bump in the road. They'll get over the bump and then hope they'll get better. You just got to stay loyal and stay faithful. They can correct it and get stronger and better. Hopefully they can just talk to us and be one person who can let us know what's going on.
Okay. Ian, would you agree? A bit more communication from them, or do you agree with the people in the chat who are saying, well, you don't really hear from other chairmen?
A bit of both, really. I don't want to sit on the fence too much. I sort of agree with everything that everyone said to an extent, but I think the main thing for me is what we've done is we've got rid of a PR and marketing genius in Amanda Staveley, and we've replaced her with people with a lot more football knowledge, which is what Piff, I think, decided long term was going to be the better option. I don't know whether you can tell me anybody that you know in the history of football who's been an expert on football, but has been also an expert in marketing and who could do, you know, who could communicate like Amanda Staveley has, because I can't think of anyone. You know, we've been spoiled with the communication skills and the marketing skills and the PR skills that she's had, and what she lacked in football, she made up for more so in that side of things. It's a shame they couldn't come up with a way of incorporating her skills with the football skills of the people behind the scenes and say, you know, listen, this is your remit, and your remit is to put the message across. Our remit is to tell you what the message is. If you can do that, brilliant. If you can't, goodbye. And maybe that's what's happened. You know, we don't. None of us know, because we can't see what's going on behind the scenes. But for me, it seems that we've been spoiled with Amanda and Merdad and the Jamie Reuben thing, and you know, Piff coming along and his excellency or whatever he's called, kicking footballs when he's got a knackered hamstring, and you know, all the stuff that went along with that feel-good feeling that the club had a season or two ago. And it's all just suddenly took a little bit of a back step. But like Daz said, it's one step backwards at the moment, but it will be 2 steps forward. And we'll just get used to a new way of doing things. And that way, unfortunately, now it's probably not going to be the softies, like nice PR marketing way of dealing with things that Amanda had, that family feeling that we had as a club. We probably they've decided we've outgrown that, and now it's serious business. And like you say, there's not many other. Well, put it this way: the only people that you hear from who are in the hierarchy, the CEOs of clubs that are coming out and speaking at the moment, I wouldn't want speaking for Newcastle United.
Okay, good stuff. I think a lot of this has happened with Amanda departing. You made a good point there, and Amanda and a lot of people in the chat are saying the same. We've lost the human touch. Amanda would have made a good chairwoman, says David. So yeah, I think a lot of us agree, maybe that even a return of Amanda in some capacity like that in the future, where she's not an actual director, just somebody who's brought in as the
figurehead.
Figurehead would make a lot of sense. So Kevin, obviously the question from Darren in the chat was, do you think PIF have lost interest? I mean, it's a long-term plan on behalf of PIF. I think we're all agreed on that. And
right.
Yeah, just would you like to, it's not the first time I've asked this on here, would you like to hear a bit more from them? Do you think it's, Steve Bennett made a really valid point. He lives in Saudi. He's living and working in Saudi for the last 8 years, dealing with these people. You will not hear from them. They look to employ the best to do the day-to-day running. And
that's what I seen another question about Darren Eales at Atlanta United. He built the club from ground up, and that's what PIF do. They get the best people, in their opinion, to get those in and around the club to run it how they want it to be run. He worked with one of the best owners and who knows more about, I can't remember who mentioned it, about, I think it was you, Ian, about an owner who knows more about the game of not football essentially, but American football essentially, and that's Arthur Blank, of the owner of the Atlanta Falcons, because he's entwined with every decision that's made, and what money, salary, everything. But with Darren Eales, he had to get it. He had his hand in the new stadium. He had to build a team. He had to build a coaching staff. He had to build an academy. Yes, that was all owner's money, but he had to do that as a CEO. But the communication side of it, he done a lot of town halls. He done a lot of things around the city to grow the game, which was different. It's a different culture over here to what he's incorporated in Newcastle, which is football mad. We're not football mad over here. I am, but there's a lot of different factions. There's a lot of different sports what you have to compete with. So he had to get out there and his voice out there with others to promote the team. However, the person that done it, and now he's just lost his job, Carlos Bocanegra, who used to play for Fulham, he was that voice of the club, but now we've got a new Darren Eales, if you will, but now he's been fired because he's not doing his job. We've bought poorly. We've sold players to Saudi Arabia. We've sold one of our best players to a team in Argentina who's went on loan and going into Europe, Thiago Almada. So those football decisions haven't been great from him, the GM, what we call him here, but which is really a director of football. So owners, from our standpoint here, from a Neil's perspective, don't talk. They only have to talk when they need to, but unfortunately, it can't be a fanfare when he talks. It's not. The negative. It's always the negative when they have to come out and talk. Yes, Darren Eales is a bit of a showpiece, but that's what he's learned from over this side of the pond. Unfortunately, that's how it is, because you had to galvanize, you had to get involved, you had to have I met him at 6 o'clock in the morning 2 seasons ago, whatever, watching the Leeds United game, but he had to do that just to galvanize that fan base and our fan base to be a face of it. And yes, Amanda there and me, Dad were there, but I think he's yes, he comes across as very personable, but behind the scenes, he's not very personable. He's very standoffish. He doesn't know who people are, but he just sits. I believe he just sits there and tells people what to do, like in Arthur Blank. They tell people, but he needs to get the right people in place. So again, yes, I would like to hear a little bit more, and I agree with you, Steve, what you said in terms of get somebody from PIF in there to not day-to-day running, but just be somebody in and around it and see what goes on. And because that's what happens at Man City. He hired somebody in there as the chairman or whatever, and he's the one who speaks for them, and he sees the day-to-day running. He reports back to, yes, Darren will probably report back to, but it's not really of their culture, of their way of doing things. So again, it's a very difficult one. Again, there's a lot of I agree with Spenny. I'm not supporting egotistical people. I'm supporting a football club. I would rather talk about football than people who've got an ego. And I say to players, all the players, it's not a pissing contest in the boardroom. It's not. Yes, we've got. You do your job. Yes, I do, but it doesn't matter how far you piss. It's just do your job. And that's the problem. People aren't doing the job, and there's no accountability, it seems like, at this point, from financial standpoints, from the running of the club itself, from even down into the academy. That's even worse. There's been neglect from top to bottom. And once, unfortunately, Amanda and Mida left, it just went to a complete show.
That's what I'm worried about, Kev. Because there's no under 21s or not under 18 coaches. They've all left.
No, yeah, Jack Ross, I think, running the 21s.
We've gone into a bit of a different angle here, but just to touch on that, whilst you're on if you go to nufc.com, they obviously put up the full list of changes that we've had. We have had a few changes. So the under 21 coach interim is Neil Winskill, under 21 coach Jack Ross interim. Under 18 head coach is Chris Moore. Under 18 player development coach is James Marwood. The under 16 lead coach is Jack Brazil. And the under 15 lead coach is Graham Coulson. And under 14 lead coach Ian Skinner is in place as well. So they've moved quickly to change things. But you were right. I mean, there was a point where lots of people had left and lots of people had gone. So it's a bit bizarre, a bit strange. George, going to come to you, mate. On this one, the question was: have PIF lost interest? I think we all know they haven't. But just having somebody on the ground, maybe at the club, George, and having that kind of day-to-day involvement, because it doesn't appear that we have anybody from PIF doing that. And do you think that would maybe kick people up the backside is probably the wrong expression to use, but maybe think people would be more inclined to do their job on with someone watching over them.
I think it was Denise on the strap on the bottom who said it. If all the other people in the club were doing their jobs, the owners wouldn't have to speak. It's as simple as that. The owners, and like good owners of any business, they appoint managers they expect to do the job. And the only time they get involved is when the managers aren't doing their job, like the chairman did over the Geehy transfer. He wouldn't have wanted to do that. And it's no coincidence, in my view, that shortly after that debacle, the chairman and two of his oppos are in the ground watching the game. And you're not going to tell me that he didn't have words about all of that. I'm sure he did. But the basic thing is, I don't want to hear from the owners all the time. The chairman said what he wants. He wants the best football club in the world. What other statement can he make than that? He wants to be number one. And that's typical of everything the Saudis do. I mean, even in my business, I joked about the fact that I've been in meetings where they've woken up and gone home just because somebody wouldn't put the right doorknobs on a bloody ship and left the people to sell the ship themselves. So they haven't lost interest. I'm convinced they haven't. I'm as up for the takeover as I was the day it happened. What's happening is that the people who are running the business at the moment just aren't all pulling together. They aren't doing their jobs, and that's where the difference is. And they wouldn't need to speak, as Denise said very nicely. If the managers were doing their jobs, the owners wouldn't have to speak. And there is a good point being made by people, one or two people, and I think yourselves, is that the Manchester City model is that the owners don't speak, but the owners have somebody who's there all the time, monitoring day-to-day operations. Now, I still think PIF will have one day-to-day managing operations, and the chairman will have a football person sitting beside him when he does things about Newcastle United. They're not that naive. But it's an interesting model to look at, because the way things are at the moment, and I hate to say it, but the very day that Amanda disappeared, you lads will hear me saying it again. She didn't just represent the football club. She did what all the other great people that helped us did. She bought into the Newcastle idea. She bought into the Geordie dream. And so did me and Dad, like Rafa did, like Kevin Keegan did, all the greats that we've had. That was the first thing they did. They bought into the Geordie dream. I see nothing in any of the we've got in there now, from Darren Eales down, who've actually done that and demonstrated.
Eddie Howe.
Eddie Howe, yes, has bought into.
I don't think Rafa was great though.
Sorry?
I didn't buy the Rafa Benitez. I don't think Rafa was
Wow.
Different story, the Rafa though. You're on about Rafa.
I wasn't a fan of Rafa. I wasn't a fan of Rafa.
You didn't have any money though, mate.
And now I wasn't a fan of Rafa Benitez.
God, you're hard to please, Darren. Sorry.
No,
but the fact is that they just haven't got somebody in there now. And again, I repeat myself. When if Darren Eales thinks going in the stack and singing the Bladen races and how are you United and all that sort of rubbish is going to make him popular with the fans. Well, we had one of those and we chased him down the A1 back to his home in London. We don't need another one. What we need is somebody who genuinely feels for the area and the people and the supporters particularly, and is able to speak authoritatively about it. We haven't got a single person at the moment, apart from Eddie Howe, somebody corrected me, Eddie Howe, that speaks with the passion that the fans do, or with the authority that the fans would like. And that's what's missing. And if I don't need to hear PIF all the time, but I think they need to think about how they get inside information, how they can impress themselves on the area.
Yeah, well said. Okay, George, we won't get a prediction off you because you'll be on the show later in the week. We're doing Ask George tomorrow as well.
That thing on the bottom saying she didn't have football knowledge. What a heap of tosh. Jose Mourinho never kicked a bloody football till he was in his 30s, and he's how many European Cups did he win?
Okay, George, when you get George on about politics, he knows his stuff and he likes to have his say. So there we go. PIF will not care about the in-boardroom power struggle as long as the outcome is beneficial for the club in the long run. No love lost over Amanda. It's just business. Okay, I won't get your prediction, George, because you'll be on later in the week. We're doing Ask George tomorrow. So, Kevin, prediction for Wolves at the weekend, please.
I'll save mine till Wednesday. I'm not doing a show Wednesday.
No show Wednesday. So
no Wednesday. Sorry, another airplane. Wolves are in great form. I would go. I think we'll keep a clean sheet. 3-0.
3-0. Okay, Ian. Bearing in mind, Wolves haven't got off to the greatest of starts, have they? One draw.
Wolves can't even sell their own tickets, man.
2 defeats.
Seen that?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Well, the Geordies are buying up the tickets. They'll have to give us more in the stands.
What's your prediction?
3. I think we'll beat them 3-1. I think they'll nick one. I'll give them another Dan Burn own goal.
All right.
3-1.
Darren.
2-1. I'm there the game, so 2-1.
2-1 because Darren's there. Barry.
2-0. Dan Burn, have a blinder. Keep a clean sheet.
A brace for Dan Burn.
Keep a clean sheet. 3-1 in Newcastle, says Paul. Magnus, what about you?
Well, I can't be throwing out anything that somebody else has said, so I'm going to go for a nutcase 4-2, man. We're going to smash them after quite some struggles during the game. As I just throw, Iceland are beating Turkey tonight as well. So stay tuned for that. Paul Mitchell, you need to keep an eye on that team. Please go ahead and do so. We're coming for big things.
Spenny, prediction for the weekend, mate?
You know, I usually get outrageous scores, so I'm going for 1-0 with Newcastle.
1-0. What? Everybody's happy. Everybody's happy. Everybody's happy. Prediction of win. I'm back with George tomorrow night. See you all at 6 o'clock. Thanks to Ian, to Spenny, to Kevin, to Magnus, to Barry, to Darren, and thanks to George. Thanks to you for watching. Take care. Good night.
Cheers, lads.
Take care,
Take care, guys.
Nice to see you.